Baldy joined us, and we're talking about the Steve Wilks situation, and it is a situation, in my opinion, because it's not even about he made a bad play call, zero blitz. Have you ever heard, what's the comp? You think of another head coach that's come to a press conference and said something like this about one of the members of his staff after a game.
Yeah, I think he knows. You guys, I think, talk to him tomorrow. He knows he messed up on that call. I have no problem with zero blitzes, especially when people need a lot of yards. You know, if you need to get 20 yards to kick a field goal, I have no problem with a zero blitz. But I do when there's 16 seconds left, and that's where he lost track. There was no necessary need for that just because of the time. I have no problem with the call. But, I mean, I have no problem with that play call, but when it's that time, you can't do that. It's not an option.
My take is this means, and this isn't siding with Shanahan or Wilks, I'm siding with the 49ers. I don't like the way the defense looks, and this says to me that there's discord. We asked Brian Baldinger about it. Here was his response.
Well, if I was Kyle, I wouldn't have said that. But it's hard not to already know it. I mean, it's not like he has to come out and say it. It was a horrendous call. And it was so un-49er-like. They're never a max blitz team. They're never a blitz zero team. Never. Like, they might add Fred Warner to a blitz. They might bring the slot defender off. But they rely on their front four. That's what they've done under Saleh. That's what they did under D'Amico. And that's who they are. And so to see them even line up in that, especially considering the circumstances, 16 seconds ago, no timeouts. I mean, even if you get home, so what? The half's going to end. Like, you're not going to do anything. Like, it just didn't make, like, you just play an umbrella, let them complete a ball if they want. You tackle them in bounds, you're all running into the locker room and getting orange slices. Like, it's just that simple. To give up that kind of a play in that situation, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it's unforgivable, but it makes no sense.
I tell you what, I get what he's saying off the top, which I think you are too, which is that Kyle shouldn't have said that. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. But my bigger question is more about in what way does this matter? You can be rubbed wrong, if you will, with regard to the fact that Kyle said it. I'm more interested in the defense looking better going forward. Baldy said it there. The Niners don't do that. They never call that. So if Steve, by week 7, is calling things in a way that flat out the Niners don't do, and we get press conferences after the game where Kyle's like, we'll talk about it. I didn't like the result.
Right.
Nick Bosa's like, I'm not used to blitzing like that. That's weird. And then 3 days later, Kyle's like, yeah, he knows he messed up. Wilks is apologizing an hour ago. Like, hello, does this all add up to everybody? They are not eye to eye.
Right.
And that's a problem.
It's a big-time problem, but I think the bigger problem is why do they not see eye to eye? It's not like Steve Wilks got hired in early October and he got thrown into the job. You've had a chance to vet this guy and talk to him and give him your idea about what defensive philosophy should be, what your personnel does and what they do best, and go from there. That's where the whole disconnect to me falls on Kyle Shanahan, because you brought this guy in knowing fully what he wants to do.
That's a fair point.
And I'm looking at the blitz percentages. Last year, they blitzed on 21.6% of snaps. And just for some context, that is more blitz heavy than 13 teams. So you're right in the middle at 21.6. Last year, the Giants led the way at 40. Well, we know that this year, Minnesota leads the way. And we talked about it last week, and they blitz at a 56% clip, which is far more than any team even close to last year. Well, the Niners this year are at 21.2, which is fifth least in the NFL. Only 4 teams blitz less often than the Niners. So the Niners don't blitz very often, but in this case, they blitzed everybody, 0 coverage, which means you bring 7 and you have 4 back to cover 3 guys. I don't know why Steve Wilks would do that, and I also don't know why Kyle Shanahan would be so put off by this. Like, did you not know that this might be coming?
Yeah, I do like your point with regard to if it's not on Kyle in week 7, then it's on Kyle in July.
Right.
In other words, if you've got these defensive players and a great defense, and you do, and Robert Saleh was amazing with it, and he gets a head coaching gig, and then D'Amico Ryans is amazing with it, and he gets a head coaching gig, why on earth would you go hire a new defensive coordinator that doesn't run what you've been running? Why didn't you go find another young guy who's like from that tree, as opposed to someone with head coaching experience, probably a little bit more cachet, probably a little bit more headstrong, probably a little bit more belief. And when you get into the flow of the game and the heat is all turned up, it's like, what's he going to fall back on? You know, like Kyle and John Lynch can both say, well, look, we think Steve Wilks is a smart football guy. And while he runs things his way and we run things our way, we're going to show him our way, and we're going to all meet in the middle, and poof, it'll be great. And I think that's what they meant to do. But when you get into the heat of battle, Steve is going to fall back on what Steve likes to do.
Right.
And as Baldy points out, that's not what the 49ers do. And so your players are down there going, we're not used to this. And even though Charvarius Ward should have caught the ball, you open yourself up to little things falling through the cracks. And that's what I see with the Niner defense. You can talk all day long about how they still have only given up 19 and 22 points the last 2 weeks. What's so bad? Bottom line it. If you know 49er football, you've been watching the last few years, you know this doesn't look right. They're struggling.
Yeah.
They are not themselves, and I think we're starting to get a window into why. I don't know who's right or who's wrong. I just know they're not on the same page.
Well, Kyle's right because he's the head coach.
Well, sure.
And if Kyle's wrong and Steve Wilks is, in fact, quote unquote, right, then Kyle's still wrong because Kyle hired Steve Wilks. So if you hire Steve Wilks to do a job and then Steve Wilks does things that you don't like as the head coach, you have two choices. Handle it in-house or handle it out in the public. And in this case, he has handled this one out in the public because we wouldn't be talking about Steve Wilks and a zero blitz as much as we are if Kyle Shanahan didn't kind of call him out in his press availabilities 2 times.
Yeah. I don't have this like reaction to Kyle doing it like, that's terrible leadership. My reaction to it is, uh-oh. I'm not saying it's good or bad.
My baby just learned that, by the way. It's pretty cute.
She did?
Uh-oh. Every time she drops her sip,
right.
every time anything happens.
Is she dropping it on purpose yet?
Yes,
of course.
dude.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's like, okay, you're hilarious.
No, but
Now pick it up.
Uh-oh, because I'm a 49er fan. And uh-oh. That's not good.
No.
Their defense doesn't look good, and they're not on the same page, and they're hucking people underneath buses at press conferences. That's not good.
Right. And the fact that this is happening now after a second straight loss, and you're still 5-2. I mean, this is not a team that's 2-5 where you would expect things to spin into a certain direction.
I know, but how many more losses are, still 5-3. Well, still 5-4. Like, this team should not be 5-2. They should not be 5-2.
They should be 6-1.
They at least. I'll give you that. I think Minnesota, I mean, it depends on what area of the ball you're looking at in terms of Minnesota and Cleveland and who outplayed who. Depends on what area of the game you're looking at. But a 41-yard field goal goes through and the Niners win that. And and against the Vikings, I believe, now this is a little bit more unfair, but I believe that if this play at the end of the half doesn't happen, the Niners probably win that one too. But just based on who's the better team when they line them up, they should be 7-0.
Yeah.
They should be 7-0.
It's football. And
I know.
You know that any given Sunday and the whole deal.
So yes, you kind of, right, I can take a loss because they happen, but the point is not if they're sitting there with discord on the coaching staff already, because that's going to lead to more losses.
But why do we know about any possible discord?
Because he spoke about it.
Because Kyle put it out there twice. Not once, but twice.
Well, that's my concern, because why would he do that unless what's working behind the scenes isn't working?
Well, that's my concern, because if you're a leader and this is all going on, then you handle it behind closed doors. And if you...
But what if that's not working?
Well, then you make a move. You don't put it out into the public. What is this doing for Steve Wilks? What do we all think about Steve Wilks now that we didn't think, 5 days ago?
Now the eyes are on him now.
But we all think about his competence as being less than we did 5 days ago.
I don't know about competence. I more think of the word fit. Steve Wilks is a competent defensive coach in the NFL.
Fine. One man's fit is another man's competence.
I don't know if this is the right fit. And it feels to me like they don't either right now.
Well, so why do we think that it might be not the right fit?
Yeah,
it's because Kyle Shanahan came out and put his name on the fact that it was a bad call.
But not just Kyle. You know that you and I had this conversation Tuesday morning. Nick Bosa's press conference was odd.
Right.
He's the highest paid player on defense in the history of the game. And he's looking there at the
Claude
podium.
Rains, as Guru would say.
At the podium after the game looking confused.
I don't know what they thought about it in the back end.
We don't blitz usually around here. I mean, they all sound confused and frustrated. And so I don't know. I agree with you that it doesn't seem like the right thing to do unless you've been going, hey, Steve, you got to stop doing this stuff. Steve, you got to stop doing this stuff. And then you get in the game and he's like, nope, we're doing it. Okay, do we go public so that you realize no?
Right.
But yeah.
And going public is going to get him to change his tune? I don't know, Mark.
I don't know.
All I do know is that when you go public, Nick Bosa and Kyle Twice, it becomes a talking point. And we are spending the majority of the show today talking about this thing. We've talked a lot about Brock Purdy and his concussion. We haven't talked stitch about Debo in the shoulder, Trent in the ankle, and Cincinnati at all. We're talking about Steve Wilks. And honestly, we should never be talking about a defensive coordinator in this way.
Yep, but here we are. AJ in San Jose on Willard and Dibs. Hi, AJ. What are you doing?
Hey, guys. It's my call. So, Dibs and Mark, awesome chemistry, guys. Every day you guys make my ride back to home really, really comfortable.
Thanks,
so
AJ.
I completely agree, Dibs, on what you are saying. We shouldn't be having this conversation about defensive coordinator. I think we're playing against two teams who we should have beaten very easily. P.J. Walker led Cleveland Browns, and Justin Jefferson sans Minnesota Vikings should not be winning against Niners. To talk about a coach being responsible for the loss in some way, I don't really think that's a great conversation. I think it leads us to think whether the reputation that the fans have built for Kyle Shanahan as the leader and an offensive genius is what we should be really thinking about. If you're talking about 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 call and making a quarterback go sneak in, that's not a very smart call when Brock Purdy is not Jalen Hurts. We know that he's not an expert in quarterback sneak. That's really not a very smart call either. So we are not talking about that call, but we are blaming our defensive coordinator for a call that, did not go our way and blaming him for the loss. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's interesting, AJ. Thanks. I'll say this. I think when it's 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 in the NFL, it's kind of hard to come after an offensive coordinator or any play caller for sneaking the ball because they all do it.
Yeah.
It's not just Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is running a specialized formation, and some others are trying as well. They're not doing it nearly as well. The Eagles with Jason Kelce and the way they run that, that's what Nick Sirianni keeps saying. It's not the formation. It's the way we run it. It's the personnel we have.
Yeah.
And I think he's right because they run it way better than everybody else. But I'm not going to say Kyle Shanahan ran the wrong play on 3rd and 4th and 1 with a quarterback sneak. Everybody does it. Jimmy Garoppolo was amazing at it for years.
And it's more of an art than we think in terms of not only getting the yard but staying safe. And Jimmy Garoppolo is an absolute savant at it, being able to get the snap, get low, get behind the center of the guard, and get into that little seam, that little crack, and then get forward and get the first. And if you look at the replay of Brock Purdy, he left himself open to just that very sort of a hit. And yeah, it was helmet to helmet. You're not ever going to really see that called as helmet to helmet, but the defensive player came in and cracked him right on the noggin.
He's also a runner. He's not a defenseless receiver. Helmet to helmet can happen on a runner.
I don't think that you can lead with your helmet and contact a ball carrier with your helmet to his helmet.
If they consider what you're doing basically crown to crown purposeful.
Yeah.
But if you're just flying in there and helmets hit helmets as a runner, that is a legal. It's not an illegal hit. He's flying in there trying to stop a quarterback sneak.
Even if it is illegal, and you could look at the replay and say, wow, that's illegal. even if you think that, they don't call that play an illegal helmet-to-helmet because exactly what you're saying, you're coming in to try to stop a guy from getting that 1 yard.
How about when Fred Warner did it earlier in the game? Like that helmet, I don't even know what it contacted, but he came flying through there like an absolute rocket ship. What are you going to do? Call a penalty if a helmet hits a helmet? Like helmets hit helmets.
That's why they wear helmets, Mark.
That's what they do. All right. How about Tim in Danville? Hey, Tim, what's up?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
Unfortunately, I just have to disagree with you. And, as critical as I've been with Kyle, this time, you get a pass, Kyle. It's being transparent. And, Kyle, I appreciate you actually not sugarcoating this situation. The bottom line is I'd be willing to bet this will not end well for Wilks. Whether or not Kyle calls him out, that's the least of my worries, right? It really is. The defense has great players. We have great players, but they're not performing well. And I think it's already done with this coach. We didn't have these issues with D'Amico or Robert. There's a misfit there. And but I say I'm glad, Kyle. I'm glad for you stepping up for once. I appreciate that.
Well, Tim, thanks, man. Appreciate the call. This is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I'm not so put off that he did it. I will acknowledge what you're saying. It's surprising that he did it. I don't think normally that's the way to go. But for instance, when Tim says, hey, he's just being transparent, my response to that is, yeah, he's being transparent in a way that NFL coaches don't go. They don't do that. So whether you like it or didn't like it is really sort of a matter of just taste. But I'm saying NFL coaches don't do that. And we go crazy when they do. Now, the only comp I can think of recently is not a great one because it wasn't all within the same team. But think about Sean Payton to the New York Jets.
I was
when
just thinking
somebody gets mouthy about the abilities of another coach, it's a big deal because people don't do that. So when Sean Payton takes down Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers makes a big deal out of it, then the Jets beat the Broncos, they're giving Hackett game balls, filming it in the locker room, dancing on Sean Payton's head because you don't do that in the coaching fraternity, especially within the same team. So I'm not ticked off at it because he's right, but I'm more intrigued by it because it's a message to me that there is something very wrong right now.
I agree with you.
In the 49er coaching staff.
I agree with the message part of it, and I'm not ticked off by it. I'm just disappointed at the lack of leadership by Kyle Shanahan because if you think about Gabe Kapler and his third base coach who maybe makes a wrong call on sending a guy and he gets thrown out at home, he's not going to come out and say, well, I mean, we all know that you're not supposed to send that guy on that ball. I mean, he knows it was a mistake. He knows it was a mistake. You don't do that. And you don't hear Steve Kerr come out and say, well, Ron Adams, boy, Bruce Frazier, the way that he made that decision, you just don't do that. He knows that he made a mistake. You don't do that as a head coach. Right. And even if you've gotten to the point where you've reached your wit's end, and I don't know if he has with, the defensive coordinator or not, but you got to handle things in a better way to protect your own staff.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great comps of this, not even just sports, but, different jobs that we've had. You've ever worked in a restaurant, right? You ever worked in a restaurant? Like, they talk to you different at a restaurant because it's high stress, high speed, high tension.
Right.
People are yelling at each other.
But they don't come out and clown you as the waiter in front of the customer.
Probably not.
And if they do, then I'm out.